Everyone, it's Lisa from My Dream in Soap. Welcome to my channel and thanks for dropping by. Now today we're going to make a knitted jumper soap. Now I've made various woolly jumpers and that sort of thing in the past, but what I wanted to do with this soap is actually make the jumper on the outside of the soap look like real knitting. So I'm actually going to do that by taking two different colours of soap dough. I've got some light pink here that I've just made with some neon pink and titanium dioxide. And I'll also be using a sort of goldy creamy colour that I make with golden shimmer from Mica Mama. So first I'm just kneading and working my soap dough to make sure it's nice and pliable. And if you can see here that my soap dough leaves my hand nice and clean, it's not sticky, but it is pretty firm, and that's what we always want for a good consistency of soap dough. I'm just going to be using a very simple little extruder disc. It's one of the discs that you get with any extruder set that you buy. It's just the basic little round hole that you have. And I'm going to use that to just extrude a whole load of effectively sort of soap dough wool bits. I'm going to do this in both of the colours because I want to have my jumper in two colours. I'm only going to extrude a little bit of soap dough at first because I don't want it to all dry out. Now how to get the knitting effect is you need to take two of these bits of soap dough wool and just put them together and then twist them together. And then to get the knitting effect, you do exactly the same again. You take two bits of your soap dough and you twist them together, but this time you twist them in the opposite direction. And then just carry on doing that until you've completely filled the bottom of your slab mould. Now obviously this can take quite a long while, depending on how big your slab mould is. You could even do this on the bottom of a little loaf mould or something. Now I did find as I was doing this that every now and again my little soap dough knitting strands would break and crack. So therefore I did try and keep them wrapped in some cling wrap, and that really helped. And then what I did is I got out my second extruder. I don't use this one very much, I don't like it very much, but then it allowed me to have the extrusions from both colours going at the same time. So I literally just extruded a little bit of soap dough at a time from each of the colours, rather than having just one extruder gun, you know, where you have to extrude a whole gunful and then swap colours and extrude again. So this allowed me to keep my soap dough a lot fresher, and therefore it was so much better to work with. And also you can perhaps see I got my technique quite good. I stopped being quite awkward and fiddly with it, and I got a nice good rolling action going on, which made sort of the second half of filling this mould easily twice as fast as the first half. Now I can't imagine any of you want to watch me fill the whole thing, so let's just jump to the final completed layer. So I'm going to do a poured layer on top of the knitting, and I'm going to be using white cashmere from Scent Perfect to do this. I've mixed up a small amount of soap batter, and this I've just coloured with golden shimmer from Mica Mama. So I'm using this pretty thick batter, this is easily a nice thick trace, to form a barrier. So I'm just going to spread this on. Now the reason I've got a thick batter is because I don't want this batter to seep through my stitches and ruin my design. And I'm actually just using it as a barrier, so when I pour the rest of my soap on top, that will again stop that seeping through and ruining my design. I want the inside of the soap to look nice as well, so we're going to do a nice swirl design. So here I've just worked out the amount of oils and lye that I need to get the thickness on the inside of my soap, and I'm just going to bring this up to emulsion as normal. Then when I'm just at emulsion, I'm going to split my batter out. I'm just going to pour off 3 smaller accent colours and then keep the bulk of the base the same single colour. So for those accents on the inside, I'm going to once again bring in some of this golden shimmer from Mica Mama. And then some Emerald Lagoon from You Make It Up. And then for my third colour, I'm going to bring in some Neon Pink. Now this is just a bit that I've had left over from another soap where I'd pre-dispersed that neon pink, so I'm just using a little bit of that up. And then I'm just going to soften that colour with a touch of titanium dioxide. And then for the main base of my soap, I'm just going to have it white, so in with some more titanium dioxide. I added my fragrance oil to all of my colours and blended it in nicely, but I still made sure I kept everything at a nice thin trace. Then just a case of pouring in that main base. Hopefully, I've really got my fingers crossed here, I don't want any of this white seeping through, so hopefully that barrier layer I put on has kept it so it doesn't drip through the stitches on the bottoms. We'll find out when we unmould. Then I'm just going to drop each of my colours in. I've kept my trace deliberately nice and light so that these colours sink all the way through. I don't want this to be just a surface decoration. So I'm just going to put in each of these colours and then swirl this soap nicely.
There's some stains on your photo, little cracks on your rusty frame, stuck in the mud, but
And then moving on to the front of the soap. So I want to do effectively the same thing. So some more knitted design, but I want it to kind of look a bit more like a cardigan than a jumper. So I want to do it so it would open up and have some buttons down the front. Now, when I first planned this soap, my idea is that I would do the knitting all over the front again and then trim away the shapes that I wanted to get the design I needed. However, it very quickly dawned on me that if I put this soap dough stitching all over the entire face of the soap, it was then going to leave a horrible marking pattern where I then pulled those bits of soap dough off. So what I'm doing here is I've drawn out my sort of little cardigan fronts, and I'm just going to roll my soap dough onto some paper first, and then once I've got it to the correct design, I'm going to lift that and put that onto the soap. I've made the buttons by making a little impression mould that I can push some soap dough in, and I literally just snipped, as you can see here, 3 buttons off of a jacket that I had, put it in a little bit of plastic, and then I poured some silicone over it, and that gave me my little button mould that I've got there. I'm just going to very lightly dust this with just a little bit of corn flour and then bang most of that out. Then I'll just take my soap dough that I've kneaded and made sure it's nice and soft and smooth, and just simply push it into that mould. I'll tidy up the back of the button and then just pop them out. To attach them to the soaps, I've got some of that leftover batter. Do you remember what I first put in as that sort of barrier layer? I've got some of that that's still left, and it's nice and stiff, sort of a thick piping consistency. So I'm just going to pop 3 blobs of that wet soap batter down, and then stick my 3 buttons to the front of each jumper. So here's our soap unmoulded the next day. I did have a couple of tiny wee little bits that came through on the back, but barely noticeable at all. And then just cutting the bars up. So I'm starting off by using my log splitter. And then I just swapped to my sort of little hand coping saw that I've got, where I've changed the blade to a guitar string. Now, the only reason I did the 2 of those is I much prefer what I'm using now at the moment. But this whole slab was too tall for my sort of wooden contraption that I had. So I sliced off the first layer using my log splitter, and then I'm using my coping saw. I could have done it all on my log splitter, but I didn't want to muck around raising and lowering the wire on that because that's a bit of a pain. And here are our final bars of soap, and they've come out to be really quite big bars of soap. These will be available for sale in the February 1st shop update. I'll leave a link in the description below. I hope you like the soap and you've enjoyed the video. If you have, it would be great if you left me a thumbs up. If you'd like to see what I'm doing in the future, why not subscribe to my channel? And if you've got any questions or comments, then please leave them in the comments section below. Thanks for watching everyone. Happy soaping!